What's going on, everybody? This is Raw Dog Sports. I am Mike. That is Evo. You're a monster. And I am ready to go, brother. We have got a lot of different things to talk about. We got Western Conference Finals. Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese popping up again. Flag football. A lot of guys got a lot of money since we last talked. Caleb Williams, still very unhappy up there in Chicago. Rules have changed, and one of the greats, one of the dudes of the NFL has passed away in Jim Irsay. We got a lot to talk about on today's show, but my man, welcome in. How you doing, brother? It's been a little while since we talked.
Yeah, look, I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here. Excited to talk about this stuff. Excited to watch my Timberwolves tonight. Hopefully not have another complete flop session from SGA. It's embarrassing for the league, but we'll get to that. I'm exhausted, man. Long day of work. Whoa. Almost lost Mike.
Let's go ahead and relock that chair real quick.
But yeah, long day of work, man. Weird week of work stuff that's just been draining. But now I get a nice 4-day weekend here for Memorial Day, and the boys will be coming out here this weekend. So super excited for that. Very stoked and excited for the next couple weeks. Got a busy couple of weeks, at least in the personal life. Going to Florida, we're going to go to Disney, we're going to Vegas, getting married. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. So I'm excited to get that all kicked off and started. But I get to kick it off and start it tonight here with you and the rest of the Raw Dogs out there.
Yeah, man. So you have a lot of things going on. I'm very excited for your wedding. Congratulations. We're also going to go out to Vegas. We got a baseball game coming up. We got some free tickets because the Guardians TV thing didn't work the right way. So we got some extra tickets, and we just renewed our ballpark pass. So we're going to have enough tickets for the whole family to go check out a game on Monday. But man, baseball season has kind of been a little bit on the back burner. Like, there's still so many other things going on, especially with the NBA playoffs taking place. So that's kind of what we'll start the show, man. Western Conference Finals going on right now. Your team down 0-1. You kind of alluded.
You don't want to talk about baseball and how my fucking Twins just made this insane comeback and somehow are second in the AL Central?
No, I don't particularly want to talk about how the Twins have made a miraculous comeback. And
we did just drop one to you guys here recently to the Guardians, and a whole bunch of rain delays and stuff like that. But look, baseball is going to be going on.
The weather has been awful, dude. It is so fucking cold. I have sweatpants on. It's so cold here.
Well, it's in the 90s here. We had air conditioning go out at work today. I probably have at least a quarter inch of taint sweat going. Like it's hot down here in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's hot in these rhinos. But look, baseball season is a long season. And I've said this from the beginning, right? Like, didn't give too much of a shit when the Twins weren't doing anything. Don't give too much of a shit when the Twins are doing something right now, making a move in the Central. Give it time. Give it time.
Yeah, because that division right now is pretty stacked in there in the middle. You got the 27 and 22 Twins, 28 and 23 Royals, and the 26 and 22 Guardians. Sandwiched right between one of the better teams in baseball and the Tigers, and one of the worst teams in baseball in the White Sox. But I guess not to be outdone by the Rockies, who have not hit double-digit wins yet. 8 and 42. 50 games in, and they haven't.
I feel like we need one of those poppers for the show when we get to come on in a week or two and be like, double digits. But it might be a month. Who knows at this rate?
Oh man. So I didn't want to get too much into baseball, get off track. But man, the Rockies are so bad still. They are on pace to be worse than the White Sox were last year.
Oh, they already are. They have put up the worst record to this point in a baseball season ever. So it's pretty awesome.
It's insane. All right, man. Let's transition over into the Western Conference Finals. Your team currently in that, but are they going to be in it? You alluded to some dislikes with the calls and things that happened in game one. Where do you feel going into game two? Do you feel like there's going to be a problem with officiating in this? Is Ant going to have to make a big step up? The spread tonight, set -7.5. You guys are the fucking dogs. I thought you guys would have a really good shot in this series. I know we talked about it last week. I thought the Nuggets might be the team you wanted to play a little bit more, but I feel like you guys can still win this series. 7.5 is a lot.
We're down one game right now. Tuesday's game one was pretty bad. Like I like to look inward first at what I'm doing wrong or my team's doing wrong in this case. Look, we came out, Julius Randle came out early, looked really good, shooting threes, making threes, and that dwindled. Second half, the threes went away, and we just weren't really driving the paint, which is what OKC's defense is set up to do. They're crowding the paint, making it very difficult to get to the hoop and score. Our guys, like our bench was just not getting any points at all throughout the entire game. And then I have some real questions about who we left out there on the court and who got a lot of minutes. DiVincenzo has not been good in this playoffs, like the entirety of the playoffs, and we played him a lot in the second half. Despite even getting hit in the nose, having a nosebleed and everything, like they just kept him out there. There were opportunities to remove him. We needed Mike Conley out there more. DiVincenzo's again just been cold in the playoffs, cold with his threes after last year having such a good year being a 3-point shooter. Naz Reid, who is like folklore in Minnesota, he was having a terrible game as far as shooting threes. I don't think he made any. It just got real cold in the second half. That's the inward kind of look that we need to tighten those things up, because I thought that we played a relatively good game otherwise defensively against OKC. But it really came down to officiating, I think.
Before we go with that, can I ask you now, do you worry that maybe you guys don't have enough shooting? Because you talk about their defense kind of packing in, making it hard to penetrate. Do you guys have enough shooting? Because that's why I think that DiVincenzo is probably on the floor, because he's supposed to be a shooter. Somebody can go out and hit a knockdown shot, but that hasn't happened.
Well, Mike Conley is a prolific 3-point shooter as well. Some of those guys that again, Naz Reid's good with threes, good shooter. Same with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They're pretty good from distance usually, and those guys were just really cold throughout this entire second half of the game. So I think that we have the shooters, but this team's generally been built on defense and a sustainment through the second half. So that just didn't show up in this game, and things kind of started to get out of hand when you see. Look, I haven't necessarily been anti-SGA or for him or whatever, but I've heard a lot of the free throw merchant stuff, obviously, and then you get to kind of witness it firsthand, and it was egregious. It was so egregious when you have the national media calling out NBA. It's like that one was egregious, but that it wasn't on the same level, not on the same level. No. You're having him do the goofy faces that he makes when someone has a heavy fart near him to knock him over. It's insane. He gets so zesty on the flop with a weird fucking face, and then he acts like, this is like when he smiles for the free throw merchants. I fucking hate it. It's egregious, and it's bad when national media is out there calling out the NBA, not just him, the NBA, saying, how are you going to say the playoffs are supposed to be an aggressive style of defense? There is going to be more contact. You're supposed to let them play through a little bit more. less penalties, less free throws. Let these guys play because it's a more entertaining brand of basketball. I understand that it's not something that you can continue through the entirety of the basketball season because that sort of play leads to more injuries, things like that. But like in the playoffs, you want to see an aggressive brand of basketball. You want to see less of those foul calls unless it is obvious, egregious, things like that. And you've got the Wolves playing good defense, and you've got OKC playing a really strong, aggressive brand of defense against the Wolves as well, except there's only one player on the court who's getting these calls. And it just kind of dwindles down the game and the playoff atmosphere. It feels really, really shitty to watch a basketball game and see a guy not get touched, air flop, and be making all sorts of points for this. It feels cheap. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Wolves fan and I want them to win. But that's when things started to get out of hand. Like, it was a very close competitive game until the second half. And that's when the penalties just started happening. The fouls just constantly. And it was really tough to watch and disappointing. Obviously, national media talking a lot about this. And then you're going to have the coaching staff obviously talking to the NBA and the referees and sending videos in and being like, what the fuck is this? I don't see that there's any way that the refs in this game are going to be able to go in and not be aware of what's happening and to take a more positive stance on it towards not having the flop or not having all the calls on these egregious flops. Look, this is one of the things that I've seen echoed a lot on Twitter. Thanks, Amber. People are saying that this brand of NBA right now is what's turning them off from watching the NBA, is when you're seeing this sort of stuff in the finals. Like, you didn't see that last night in the Knicks Pacers game. That one was outrageous down to the end.
Yeah.
Like,
dude, Halliburton is insane. He is so fun to watch.
Very clutch.
It pisses me off that we had to run into him, but God, he's having a hell of a run right now. Mr. Irsay giving them the shout out last tweet before he departed the earth. It was, I mean, there was an aura because Halliburton's like, fuck this. We're not, he tried to go for the win.
Yeah, and it, within centimeters of that three counting. But that was entertaining and exciting basketball. And then you looked at the Western Conference final game on Tuesday, and it just kind of felt cheap. It felt like you were robbed a little bit of what playoff basketball should be. So hopefully that changes tonight here in about 13 minutes when the game starts. Hopefully that changes. And as far as my Wolves are concerned, look, I believe it was game one that we lost to the Lakers, and then we rolled them in the next 4 games. I know that we're a good team. We can get hot. We can get on a run. If we're getting calls that are legitimate, I think that we're going to be in every game with OKC. Because don't get me wrong, OKC is a good team. They're seeing all sorts of good play from guys all over the court. Dort is doing good. You got Alex Caruso looking like Elmer Fudd from Space Jam, playing a good, aggressive brand of basketball. That's the type of basketball that we want to see. I had resigned at halftime in watching that game on Tuesday to say we might lose this one because it feels like whoever has the ball last might win. And I'm okay with that because this is a fun game to watch. At least this is what you expect in the playoffs. 2 good teams duking it out until the end. And that's what we got last night, but it's not what we got on Tuesday. We got a very cheap brand of basketball that felt fucking pretty one-sided because of officiating. And we talk about officiating all the time. I hate that shit. I hate that shit.
Man, so and the NBA officiating is always tough to deal with as well because I feel like it's so wildly inconsistent. I'm not going to talk. I don't want to talk about what travels are in the NBA anymore. But let's stay with basketball. But we're going to transition over from men's to women's basketball in a story that feels like it just will not go away for all the fucking wrong reasons. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are back in the headlines in a big time fashion for reasons that it shouldn't be about. So what happened was, if you haven't seen it, there's a rebound that happens in a WNBA game. Angel Reese comes down with a rebound. Angel Reese pushes a player in the back when she goes to get the rebound. Caitlin Clark says, hey, look, she pushed my teammate in the back for rebound. Okay, well, I'm not going to give her 2 easy points. I'm going to foul her, which makes 100% sense because Angel Reese is terrible at shooting free throws. It's a take foul. So you foul her. She gets frustrated. She gets upset. And there's a little bit of jawing back and forth. They end up, for some reason, assessing a flagrant foul on the foul, which it should not have been. She was going for the ball. And then things go from there, and it becomes a fiasco with, there were people saying potentially racist remarks or other things, but there are reports that nobody said anything racist. They were just booing Angel Reese. So the story has devolved from what was a basketball play into a talk about race again, and how Black women are portrayed in the media, and if there is special treatment being paid to Caitlin Clark for her superstardom. It's just, I don't. This conversation is tiresome, quite frankly, because we should be talking about the basketball. Evo, before I kind of go on my little tirade, my diatribe, hop in here, brother. What did you see? Where are you at on this whole situation?
Well, it's fun that you come to me on this one as a recently anointed Black man. If you didn't hear Ginger's and my ginger beard, at least makes me light skinned, I think.
Yes.
So that's pretty cool. It's let's keep a tone down on the G word out there. We're taking it back. But like it is always shitty. Like I'm tracking, I'm paying attention moderately to this, but it's exhausting to have kind of consistent racial issues brought up between Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and WNBA stuff. Because at the end of the day, I don't think you see the color on the court. At least I don't. It's the only color you see is the uniforms to me, and it's about the product being put out on the court. Angel Reese has a bone to pick with Caitlin Clark.
And vice versa. They're they're rivals. Like, they're not gonna like each other.
It's just the only one that seems to be really outwardly speaking is Angel Reese, a lot more on social media and stuff like that. So I think that's why a lot more of the kind of vitriol and hatred gets pointed towards her in a way. But look, I'll say this on that foul. While yes, I do think Caitlin Clark was going for the ball, I do think it was a little bit aggressive. I do think that there was a little bit extra to it.
I'm sure you're giving her a hard foul. She's a bigger girl. Caitlin Clark is a fucking guard.
At the end of the day, we see rivalries in every single sport. And it seems like right now, the only one that is revolving around race is this one. And it kind of feels like a bit of a cheap argument. To me, it's a matter of, we have two good players who are competitive, who are rivals, and they are playing a very competitive and engaging brand of basketball, which is kind of fun to watch.
Well, and they play different positions, and they play completely different types and brands of basketball. But they still have a feud with one another. I don't have a problem with them having a feud. Like, fucking hate each other. Like, if the RG3 thing, he says if she hates her. If she does, who the fuck cares if she hates her? Like, because I'm sure Caitlin Clark feels pretty damn weird near the same way. Like, they probably don't really get along. The whole, oh no, we're friends, was just so we could stop talking about this shit in the media and we could just move on.
Yeah.
I think that they probably just don't like each other and they're tired of talking about it. But every time this comes up, it turns into an issue of race and those other things, when it should just be a couple of athletes don't fucking like each other and are getting aggressive on the court.
Yeah, this isn't the whole Jim Rome and that other quarterback on this show where they get into a fucking fight sort of situation where it needs to be completely replayed. Like, this is not uncommon sort of, I don't know if I want to call it sportsmanship, but it's like, it is a part of the game that happens on the court. It's is an expected thing. Yes. And it's no different than any other sport. It's just, I don't know, like, it's tough because the media can't not report on it. They can't not talk about it. because it is something that is being pushed around and talked about. The only way for it to die is for them to have a Hands Across the World tour or some shit between these two, or for the media to give up on it. And they're not going to do that because they need to make their money too. And I think the WNBA is able to quietly sit back and say, we kind of like it too, because we are getting more eyes than ever on this sort
Yeah,
of shit
like
by allowing drama to kind of fester. I
I,
don't know.
I'm not gonna say that he's a good man, but maybe take a page out of old Vince McMahon's fucking playbook and sell the goddamn heel aspect versus the baby face and make it a rivalry, and then you sell that shit for holidays and all, because that's what the fans want to see. They tune in to those games. Okay, like, use that. It's a spectacle. Sports are entertainment. I know it's a competition between the people who are playing it, but for everybody else watching it, it is entertainment. It is a spectacle. That's what we want to see. So stop making it something that's not. Let these fucking athletes go out there and compete. And if you are being a racist, well, obviously you're a fucking scumbag. You're not going to listen to what anybody else says, anyways.
Yeah,
So I don't
I
know.
think
I
that's
don't have any words for you. Go fuck yourself if you're racist. But
yeah. They've said, you know, that they're going to do the investigation. All parties involved have been like, yeah, we support the investigation. If that shit's happening, it's not welcome
yeah,
in our sport, not welcome in our society. And I think everyone who is level-headed in the least agrees with that.
yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was racial shit fucking slung around in that game.
I mean,
Uh,
it's fucking Indiana too, bro. Like, let's not.
I was born in Indiana. What's wrong with Indiana?
There's a lot of people that maybe don't like people who are not their color.
Dude, there's people that don't like different
Yeah,
colors
everywhere. I
everywhere.
know. That's very true.
Unfortunately, it's just an unfortunate fucking part of society. Like, we're humans, and humans are flawed, and there's a lot of shitty humans out there. But regardless, there's no need for that in our society. No need for that in the sport. And by all means, they should investigate, find if that's an issue, and try to eradicate it as best as possible. But I think it's just, we have a situation that they're already trying to drive home as a racial issue. They being, I don't know,
Yeah.
whether it's media or outside sources or whatever. But then it's like you're adding in like little pop shots on the side to try to kick off more shit of the racial stuff in the crowd. Like, uh, you know, and then they, going after Portnoy for saying stuff or whatever. I don't think that
All
he's going
don't
to be
lie. Okay, so listen, Dave Portnoy is an asshole, but he's like my type of asshole.
sure.
So saying "ball don't lie" is not racist. Like, that is normal fucking trash talk. That is
That
not
you could
even
hear that
like,
at any fucking game, any
yes,
NBA game, and any
yeah,
WNBA game. Like, that's just normal fucking phraseology.
yeah, that is absolutely not anything like nefarious whatsoever. That is completely normal. So, if you're going to go after people and say, no, you can't boo, then people won't watch the WNBA. You have to let these people enjoy it as a fan and have the fandom. I think they probably screw this entire interaction up with the race thing. Now, don't get me wrong, there were definitely people who were saying some racist remarks at one point when Caitlin Clark came into the league. So I'm not going to say that was not happening, because it was absolutely happening. But the fact that we're still on that, we can't just get into the rivalry, is going to hold the entire league back.
Yeah. And like, you brought up the booing thing, and that I'm sure there's going to be extra coverage whenever they do play each other in order to try to prevent that stuff. But obviously, booing is a part of the sport. The fan interaction is part of live sporting
Yes.
events. That's the reason why they have the fucking little boom sticks and stuff like that at the basketball games, to try to throw off free throw shooters. It's why teams, will throw shirts that kind of like talk shit about the other team on every chair of every seat, to try to create an ambiance. The fan experience, while it might not have as much of an effect of the players on the court or the field or whatever for the sport, it's one of the reasons why you love sports, because you feel like you are a part of the game with that
Yes.
sort of a fan experience. That's why the Vikings skull chant is so engaging, because you feel like you are creating part of that atmosphere that is helping to drive your team on. It's why every team everywhere puts up different banners and slogans and logos and stuff like that at different parts of a game that tells the crowd to get loud because it's engaging. It gets the team going to an extent. It makes you involved and it makes you feel like you are personally connected to that experience, which is one of the beautiful parts of sports. So I don't think that there's ever going to be a time that should go away or be stymied by the league or anything like that.
All right. I'm sorry. As you were going, you were glitching so hard that I was like, you were Evo Spider-Man going through freaking different time portals. But the WNBA needs to better capitalize on what they do have. And I don't think they're doing a good job. But all right, man, let's get off of basketball. Let's get into something that's a little bit more of our forte. Something that I enjoyed playing, I enjoyed coaching. Flag football. Flag football is coming to the Olympics, and that was at 2028. I want to say, and the NFL players are going to be allowed to play now. Much to the chagrin of some of the USA flag football team, specifically, what is his name? Doucette. What? I cannot remember his first name.
Yeah, and that's maybe
Pretty
part
good
of the issue.
is like, okay, so who's going to be on this team? Because if the NFL players are allowed to be on the flag football team, you should just put you should just put the entire NFL out there because they don't actually have to play flag football. They could just go out there and.
Have you watched some of the professional flag football?
So I watched some of the I can't remember Doucette. I watched some of his games because when they were talking about like the USA flag football team, I was like, I gotta see this.
And
he's phenomenal. He's insane.
Yeah, I've watched a little bit. I can't remember last year or something. It was on TV. Like I watched some.
The ability to move their hips the way they do is insane to me.
Yeah, and let's be very clear here. It is flag football. It's not tackle. It is catered much more to a Tyreek Hill style of player, someone who is extremely fast, extremely quick, shifty. Those are the keys to this because it's all about creating separation and then being able to outrun the guys around you. In addition, of course, to play design and things like that. You have to have someone who can accurately throw the ball. So where that comes in with NFL players, I'm sure that there are plenty of NFL players out there who would love to have the opportunity to win an Olympic gold medal.
Oh, yeah.
That being said, traditional NFL players, for the most part, don't fit the mold of what flag football requires. You absolutely have people who do, but I think that it's interesting. So NFL players are going to be allowed to play in the Olympic Games in flag football, but then it's probably going to come down to teams being like, do we want to risk injury to some of our premier players? Do we want to, possibly have this guy not be available for our actual sport? On top of that, you have the current flag football players who are very dedicated towards their craft, their sport, and who are the correct type of players and athletes for that game. I think that you're looking at a very limited amount of guys from the NFL who would transition appropriately. Like a Patrick Mahomes, I don't think transitions appropriately to that game, despite being one of the best passers in the game. A Josh Allen, I don't know if he's closer, but a Lamar Jackson maybe
goes crazy.
I think that he's like the perfect kind of fit.
Jaden Daniels goes crazy.
Yeah, these sorts of guys that are insane athletes, Jalen Hurts maybe to some extent, insane athletic, that dual threat type of quarterback, that kind of fits. And then you have wide receivers and running backs.
So I'm going to ask you before we get into those guys real quick, what positions would you allow a guy to even play? Because you got to think about all of the quick movements that are going to be happening on more than likely turf fields. So all of your, your fast twitch guys, your receivers, your running backs that we were getting ready to talk about, those guys are going to take a lot more impact on their joints. For me, I'm like, okay, maybe I let a safety go or I let a quarterback go. But all my skill position players, how much do I want them running routes, competing on synthetic turf and not our sport?
Yeah, that it's going to be a tough question for NFL teams, I think. You're probably more than likely looking at the lower end of roster players who are athletically gifted, but maybe not as skilled as they could be in the actual game of American professional NFL football, who are going to be able to allow or are allowed to go participate in this. And those guys might actually outcompete and be better than the flag football players that are currently out there. I think you're also going to see CFL probably get involved to an extent, or college football players trying to go do this. But actual starting lineup NFL players, I think it's kind of hit or miss. And also, these flag football rosters are not very big. So you're talking about a pretty minute amount of NFL players. I think that not necessarily would be eligible because most are going to be eligible. You're not going to put a defensive lineman out there. Even Aaron Donald, as incredible as he is, just doesn't fit with that brand of sport. It's his skill sets don't suit what they're looking for. Like a Tyreek Hill or something like that, maybe. Yeah, like I could see that. But again, non-contact injuries are typically some of the worst out there. That's your ACLs, MCLs, things like that, Achilles. Severe high ankle sprains, things like that, where you're going to see this on turf more often. You're going to see those non-contact, and you don't want guys out there incurring those injuries. So they're going to reduce the potential impact of an injury by not putting out those top tier players. As far as the actual
and the flag guys, those flag guys, they train to make those types of cuts, those insane, like violent types of cuts. They're doing additional work to make sure they're flexible, because you can do that in flag football. You don't even train that in the NFL, because if you try to do something like that in the NFL, a linebacker is going to come over there and kill you.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
their muscles are not quite in the same condition to do that type of cutting either.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. There's almost a memory to those muscles and the way that you train to it. A Cordero Patterson, lower end roster guy, crazy athlete, big in size, and good on things like kickoffs, and was a running back and a wide receiver. Like, he kind of fits the mold of what they might be looking for. Someone who, if he goes down for a season-ending injury, NFL wise, you're not going to be terribly upset that you just lost this guy, but he could be a potential impact guy for a flag football team. As far as those actual guys that are on the flag football teams right now for the U.S., and them being upset about the NFL guys getting involved with it. I mean, I understand the perspective? Sure. Also, do better. Like, if you're worried about losing your spot, like, I'm not going to get upset because now they're being allowed. Like, do better. Like, unfortunate. Look, and I say this as a person who is not going to be able to go out there because I'm nowhere near a professional athlete. I can't do better, and I know that. And if you are at risk of losing your roster spot on the Olympic team, it's probably just because you aren't as good. Unfortunately, sorry to say it. That's a meritocracy. That's the way this shit works, baby. And that's how it is in every fucking sport. And I guarantee you, if there wasn't an NFL, you would have NFL players playing flag football. Like, if there was a means to an end there, a way to make a living and money, you wouldn't have guys playing in the NFL. You'd have them playing flag football. Correct. They just play NFL because that's where the fucking money is, man. Unfortunately. So, like, I get where they're coming from. That sucks. Big bummer if you lose your roster spot and you can't play in the Olympics. But guess what? That just means that you weren't good enough. And that is the unfortunate fact of life. We all aren't going to be the best.
How do you think all of the white NBA players felt when they started letting black people play? Guess what, guys? You're not good enough to play anymore.
They tried to stop that too.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Well, all right. Let's move on to some NFL contracts.
Let's talk about women and men and women's sports.
No, let's not do that. All right, let's talk about the money they got handed out. Some big boy got some big money. Joe Thuney, guard, Chicago Bears, gets paid pretty decent little extension, 2-year, $35 million, $17.5 million a year. I mean, Joe Thuney's been a great player in the league for a very long time. He is reported to come out and say, I love what they're trying to build here. We'll touch more on that here in a little bit. But Bears doing a good job. Ryan Poles doing a good job retaining talent, especially along that offensive line to try to help Caleb Williams. This is a great job by Ryan Poles. Agree?
Yeah, and look, this is probably something that the way the contract is structured is that it's actually going to provide some relief for the Bears going forward, while also pseudo rewarding a player for the level of play that they have. Typically, when you trade for a guy like this who still has some time on his contract, you're not trading for the contract, you're trading for the player, and you're going to work something out. The Chiefs weren't going to be in a financial position to work out any sort of a contract extension with Thuney, so for him to go there, part of the deal is, and despite whether or not people like it or not, players are involved in their own trades to an extent, especially when you're top tier starter level players. If you say, hey, you want to trade me from the Buccaneers to the Panthers, I'm just not going to play for them because I don't like the Panthers. They suck. Something like that. Right. So Thuney, I guarantee his agent was in talks with the Bears like, hey, would you guys be interested if this trade happens in extending him? This is going to sway whether or not he's cool with the trade. It's just one of those things that happens behind the scenes. So good on the Bears for getting him locked down. I'm sure that they're able to provide themselves some sort of cap relief going into future years by doing this extension as well. So it's probably good for all parties.
I know Joe enjoys it. Elsewhere, Fred Warner gets paid another good contract, 3 year, $63 million, 21 average, making him a very, very nicely paid linebacker. And then some additional money goes out here. We'll talk about it in just a second. But Fred Warner stays. Huge contract for him. I was worried that they were not going to have enough money to get everything done. They're going to have to move some guys around. There's and a lot of things that have already happened to move money off of books. Still think there's going to need to be a little bit more done. But man, he gets a huge deal. Where are you at on this? That's a lot of money for an off-ball linebacker.
Yeah, for sure. He's one of the best in the league, though, and he is kind of the heart of that defense. Like without him on the field, they're completely different. So it's nice to reward a player like that as well. But yeah, the 49ers in general, look, Rome wasn't built in a day, but they got to be taking some steps to relieve some of the cap issues. Obviously, they are a very different looking roster this year, kind of leading to some beliefs that they might, not be the team that we thought that they were a year ago. And so that'll definitely be interesting to watch and see because, 49ers did some other pretty major contract moves this week as well.
Yeah, they came out with another big one. Brock Purdy gets his deal done finally, 5 year, $265 million, average salary 53 a year, signing bonus $40 million. Brock gets a huge chunk of money for a guy that people were not sure is he a franchise quarterback. He's being paid at least bottom level franchise quarterback money now. At the $53 million a year, he has to be very happy with this going from Mr. Irrelevant to paid as fuck.
Yeah. And there's still absolutely question marks with Brock Purdy, game manager, whatever. The guy's wins, he's able to win with talent around him. We have to still see if he can kind of uplift the team around him, which is why you pay quarterbacks that supreme contract in order to be the guy who now no longer is reliant on the guys around him, but who can also uplift those around him. And we still have to see if he has that in him, has that capability. But it is kind of just the going rate of starting level quarterbacks is right around that 50 mil mark. He's making right around what Tua makes and things like that. And if you had to ask me, would I rather have Tua or him? I'm going with Brock Purdy, younger, less head trauma, all that shit. And realistically, while you do have to pay a player the market rate in order to keep them, I think that they still get him at somewhat of a bargain for what his ceiling could be. And in a couple of years, this contract is going to look almost like what the Baker Mayfield contract looks like now, which feels like a bargain. It's a good payday for him. He probably could have held out for more. I don't know if the 49ers would have been able to really truly figure that out. But he still has another contract beyond this in him. So if he's able to make good on this, then the payday that's going to be coming next is going to be monumental. Versus right now, he just made generational money, life-changing generational money for him and his family. It's a good deal for both sides. I'm interested to find out, Joe Rockstar, if you're out there, we want your take on this because obviously this is your team. I know you're gonna have thoughts. You got thoughts about Brock. They got lucky in finding him. You know, yeah, we can say like we saw talent and went after it, but when it's Mr. Irrelevant, it is what it is. You don't expect to see the caliber and tier of play that you have from him. So I think, yeah, only 8 mil against the cap this year. That's, they're going to be remaining. The current contract is obviously going to remain in place, and then all this is kind of going on in the future. But at the end of the day, I do think that that's the thing. It's a good deal for both sides. Obviously, Brock and generational life-changing money, and the 49ers are able to not get cute and get a guy that they know can at least compete and has some of those intangibles that you're looking for. Good team guy, and still has potential to uplift the guys around him. We'll see if he can make good on that this year.
Well, he's going to have a couple of years where he's going to have the option to do that. Looking at, was this over the cap? This next year, he's only going to take up 3% of the cap. After that, 8%, 9%, and then it'll jump up to that 15% mark where things get a little dangerous after that 2028. But there's also a potential out for the Niners and after that 2028 year. So if Brock doesn't make good, the Niners are not on the hook for the entire thing. If Brock does make good, he will hit his next contract at age 32, which is that's a great age to come in as a quarterback for another long-term deal. You can do another 4 or 5 year deal, make another $300+ million at that point, probably. And generational wealth gets even bigger. So great deal for the Niners, great deal for Brock Purdy.
And thanks, Knock, for popping in. Glad to see you in here. Appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Knock. All right, brother. In terms of football, we're going to go back to the Bears. Some news came out, or additional news is going to come out. There's a book. It's going to involve a lot of details about Caleb Williams and what happened and how he didn't want to go to the Bears. So give us a little bit of a breakdown, backstory on all this shit that's going on with Caleb Williams, because we heard some rumors that he'd never wanted to go there, but apparently there's a little truth to all this stuff.
Yeah. Surprise. Caleb's trying to make good on, and his family is trying to make as much as they can while they can. I get it. Make your bag, go put out a book. You've been in the league for a year and haven't been good. But the storylines that we had heard before was that, yeah, he, didn't want to go to the Bears, had considered holding out, that there was, thoughts of like, how do we force him not to get drafted so he can choose where he wants to go, things like that. Weird stuff that, seems silly. And it looks like a ref is now bleeding on the court in this NBA game. That's awesome. That's what you get. Lou Dort, or whatever his name is, Dort, fucking hit a dude in the face. Anyways, but yeah, it's coming out in this book, which I don't believe is released yet, that they were exploring options of not being drafted. How could they not get drafted? And apparently he really wanted to go to the Vikings. Like the quotes are saying, I have to go to the Vikings after meeting with Kevin O'Connell at the combine and whatnot. And I get it. Like we talked about this last year as it being one of the most enviable situations for a rookie quarterback to go into, with, the offensive talent and the coaching staff and everything. And so I get why a player would want to go there. I think a lot is going to be made about the comments just because he goes to the Bears in the same conference and division as the Vikings, and how bad last year really was. The coaching was just terrible. More coming out about the specific coaching with Caleb, how he didn't have people guiding him in film sessions. Like he was just going to a room and told, hey, go watch film, and not knowing what to look for, things like that. And I think it's a twofold issue here. It's obviously the coaching was terrible, and that's why there's been upheaval there. And you have Ben Johnson
Well,
there.
there's questions about the coaching before that as well. Who the fuck was his coach in college? Who the fuck was his coach in high school? I remember in high school, our coaches, we would go into the driver's ed class and we would watch film during lunchtime, like every day during football season. We would talk about film. Is that something that there's no way that people are not watching film like that anymore? Because it would make no sense to me. How can you play the game if you don't understand the game? So to be that far behind where nobody has told him how to watch any ounce of film or what he's looking for as a quarterback is fucking astonishing to me. And somebody did this young man a huge disservice to this point in his career.
And well, that's why I kind of say it's a twofold issue. Like organizationally,
he could have also gone and sought this information out.
Coaching is a problem. I question, Ryan Poles, how you as the general manager and person basically in charge of this team are allowing this to happen to the number 1 overall pick in your building. You should have a staff basically dedicated to him to make sure that he's successful. Should that be the coaching staff? Yeah, but also you should also have some checks and balances in this to make sure that this is actually happening. You saw Patrick Mahomes when you were part of the Chiefs organization, Ryan Poles. I'm sure that they did good things with Andy Reid to make sure that he was nurtured correctly to become what he is today. But like I said, it's twofold because part of it is on the player at this point. Caleb should, as a quarterback, know what to do as far as a film session. If he's not receiving that, he should be seeking that out just as much as they should be giving that support to him.
Yes.
And I can't help but bring it back to my guy, JJ McCarthy.
Okay.
The day after he gets injured, the day after his surgery, he's in the building going to a defensive captain, Harrison Phillips, and saying, I want to schedule a weekly sit down with you to go through film, to go through the defensive film and show me what you guys are thinking, what I need to be noticing to make myself better. There's not a day that he was not in the building actively trying to progress while rehabbing from the injury in the head, not just in his leg that was injured. He's in there trying to get better every day, seeking that information out. And I have no doubt that the coaching staff was helping him. I have no doubt that this coaching staff was helping him. Kevin O'Connell is a quarterback whisperer, and he was a quarterback himself. He knows how to nurture these guys correctly. But the fact that JJ was going out of his way beyond that to go seek out help from other players, professionals, team captains, not just on his side of the ball, but to try to just grow himself. It shows a crazy difference between the upbringing of these quarterbacks, between the tutelage that they've had. I don't know, but to me, it's definitely an indictment on that previous coaching staff. It's an indictment on the front office for not managing it correctly, but it's kind of an indictment on Caleb Williams and his maturity. Because look, these young quarterbacks, they don't have time to be kids anymore. They are the big boys in the room. That is the face of your franchise. You have to mature. You have to grow up. You have to take the reins yourself if necessary. Eli Manning was talked about recently, how he would go and hold meetings himself without the coach's permission. He would go pull different groups in the room. He had dedicated days of the week. This is when the wide receivers and running backs are coming in, and I'm running the meeting, and we're going through film. And this is what we're doing for the game. This is when the offensive line is coming in. I am running the meeting, not the O-line coach. I'm running the meeting. That was his team, and he was doing that shit. He was doing it with defenders. That's a guy who is taking ownership of his position, being the face of the franchise, the leader of the team, going out and doing that. And it's tough to expect these guys to do it in year one as a rookie.
Well, yeah, for sure.
But you see inklings of that from other guys like a JJ, who's going out of his way to not only just assimilate with the team, but to grow as a player. That's the sort of leadership that you want to see in your team. And it's a little bit scary if I'm a Bears fan to know that this sort of stuff was going on. And rather than be like, hey, I need help, seeking out the help and getting the correct coaching that you need, he kind of just was like, well, I guess this is the situation I'm in. I'm gonna paint my nails while watching fucking some film.
and not knowing what the hell I'm looking at.
Yeah, and it
I so
definitely showed up on the
I
field.
will never understand that. Why not? Why not say something? Why not? Okay, maybe it's embarrassment because at this point you think somebody should know what they're looking for
There's no
when
room
they're
for
watching film.
embarrassment. There's no
Like,
room.
yeah, I don't understand why it's a problem. But also, there's a lot of Twitter spats, or I'm sorry, X spats this week. Between RG3 was actually involved in this one as well. With Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner saying, you know what, nobody ever showed me how to do this. And to Kurt Warner, I say, somebody also kind of fucked you, I think. I feel like a quarterback should have somebody, especially as a young quarterback coming up, you're going to have somebody teach you how to watch film and what the hell you're looking for to understand coverages. And because when somebody brings you the paper or whatever, or the pad on the sideline, you're like, cool, I just see some shit. I think your coach might be a little upset.
From the outside looking in, you would just assume, as a casual fan, I would assume that there is probably some sort of a mentorship dragnet that happens with a team when you bring in a high rookie pick. I mean, part of that was like, obviously the Vikings have Kevin O'Connell, but they brought Josh McCown in to be probably a veteran mentor. It's why with rookies you want a veteran there to help mentor them.
Yeah.
Who was even the backup there for the Bears last year? I don't remember.
Shit, I don't even know.
Which it just seems like a failure if you're not having that mentorship around. Because there's plenty of veteran quarterbacks in the league. You've seen so
fucking
many of them
Evo started out as his coach, so
yeah. I don't know. I'm looking up now. I have to know who the backup was. Other than the young kid, the white kid, I can't think of his name.
Badgett?
Small school, Badgett, Tyson Badgett. If that's your veteran leadership,
man, that would be such oh wow. Hold on, let's figure this out because that would make a lot of sense.
It would. See 2025 roster with the 24.
Oh man, I just don't understand that. I still don't get it, man. That was one of the things that I loved watching film. I don't know if did you guys do something similar in high school where you guys would,
absolutely every morning we would come in early, weight room, and then we would go do film before classes started.
So we would do it during lunchtime. Like we would either bring a lunch, have school lunch, or order a fucking pizza or something, and sit in the room in the driver's ed room because it had massive screen, so we could watch film. It was great. I loved that about high school football.
All right. Now I don't know if this is correct. I'm not positive that's updated, but the primary backup was Tyson Badgett, and then Case Keenum and Austin Reed. Case Keenum is a solid veteran mentor, and you would think that in Case's case, you would have helped him out there a little bit. I don't know.
I mean, I can't imagine Case's the guy's like, that's not my job to be a mentor at this point because I mean, Case has got to know that his starting chances they're over.
Yeah.
Case is there to be a backup and mentor.
For all I know, Case was like, let me tell you about this time I was with the Vikings in this Minneapolis Miracle situation. Yeah. And maybe that's the extent of his mentorship. I don't know.
This one time I threw a ball and I got super lucky.
Stephon Diggs did some crazy shit.
Yeah, he did. All right, man. So let's stay with the NFL. Rule changes. There was a owners meeting. Rule changes were proposed. The big one, the Tush push ban was proposed. Came close, did not pass. Tush push is still in play. And the Eagles have been trolling the internet and the NFL ever since. And I fucking love it. Because I think it's hilariously petty. Any other things that came out that you really want to talk about, or is the Tush push really just kind of the big news? Because to me, man, I feel like everybody is waiting to see. Finally, it's going to get banned. I felt like they had some momentum to get this shit banned.
They needed what, 24 votes, and they got 22. Yeah, so it's close, and I think that the writing is probably on the wall. And I had a little bit of a conversation with Sexy Tour Shotguns on Facebook about this yesterday. But before we get into that, the only other real major news was that the onside kick has changed. Now it doesn't have to be the fourth quarter and you're trailing for you to say, hey, I'm doing it. You can do it at any point in time that you're trailing. Do I think that matters? Probably not. Also, the kicking team, I believe it's the kicking team, is 1 yard closer to the receiving team. Do I think that matters? No. I think at the end of the day, that it was basically moot changes on this. The NFL needs to seriously consider switching to some sort of a play with quarterback on the field, because quarterback is what makes the NFL money. If it's a 4th and fucking 20 or something like that,
we got to have
of
special
situation,
teams, bro. We have to have special teams. Otherwise, it's not football anymore.
well, that's what regular kickoffs are for, and your punts and your field goals. And look, I agree. I dislike where the current state of the onside kick is. I wish it would revert back to just what it originally had been, if anything. But apparently that's too dangerous. And now we just have an unfun brand of football, which leads me into the next.
I mean, how many guys are you going to convince at this point to be like, all right, so here's the deal. He's going to bounce this thing as high as possible. And I just want you to go in there and torpedo yourself directly into the chest of somebody else. Fuck the ball. Just go right at somebody's chest. I don't think any NFL players are signing up for that anymore with all the knowledge we have about head problems.
If they're paying me vet minimum, which is 6 figures, sign me up, baby. I've already got a fucked up head. The Army did that to me, baby. So send it. You'll find people to do it, right?
Probably will, yes.
But look, it's boring right now, the way that it's currently set up. There's still obviously potentiality for those sorts of injuries to happen, because there's still going to be that sort of potential collision. And I think that they just need to, if they're going to act in the name of safety, put the quarterback out on the field and make it a play. But with it being unfun right now, I think that kind of branches into the conversation of the tush push, which obviously is still going to be a thing. The Eagles are the goats at doing the tush push. It helps when you have a quarterback that can deadlift 600 plus pounds. And I get it. And you're not going to see all of a sudden teams going out and saying, we only want quarterbacks that can deadlift 600 pounds, so that way we can perform the tush push. Because the tush push is, in general, a minutia sort of play. It is short yardage to gain. It is goal line. You already have versions of this on every single team, specifically for the goal line. It's just some teams don't execute it very well. Most teams don't. The Eagles do a very good job of it. You could see teams having more players specifically practice and be prepared to do this sort of a thing. If I had Aaron Donald on my team, I'm probably teaching him how to take a snap and finding a way to do a tush push type situation. And I think NFL teams should probably start to cater towards that, unless this play ultimately in the future gets banned. But as of right now, it's almost like for the Eagles, it's a given first down or touchdown, whatever you want to call it, with a yard or less to gain. And it's a weird spot for me to be in, because like, while I do feel like it's a boring play and it's kind of cheap, it's also football. And if you don't like it, find a way to defend it better. And you can find a way to defend it better outside of changing the rules to an extent. I don't like the fact that it feels like a rugby play. I don't like the play altogether.
The center, bro. I think every time they do it, the center goes to a 2-hand snap. So he's already basically in that fucking torpedo spot.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to the flag football reference, though. If you're not good enough to be on that flag football team, sorry. Yeah, well, if you're not good enough to stop this play, sorry, do better. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm good with it either way. Would I have loved to have seen it banned this year because my Vikings play the Eagles? Sure. Maybe don't let them get in 3rd and short, 4th and short goal line situations. Maybe find a better way to defend it. I don't know. So it hasn't really moved the needle for me. Would I, if it had gotten banned, would I have been happy? Sure. But I'm not heartbroken that it's not banned.
Yeah. So for me, I don't really care, because it's not going to affect my team. But also, I am very much in the vein that if you can't defend it, then fucking figure it out. But they don't use it like for every play. Now, if this was their entire offense, where they start running a rugby style offense and they're just doing this at 2.5 yards a pop for 25 plays down the field, yeah, ban that shit immediately because that's awful. But it's a QB sneak. It's a really effective QB sneak, which has been in the fucking NFL for forever.
Yeah. DiVincenzo just hit a 3. I'm fucking blown away. Yeah, like I said, if it gets to that point, which I don't think it will, the NFL really does run on explosive plays, and you're paying a lot of guys a lot of money to do things other than the tush push. But until then, it's whatever, you know. The other thing that kind of came from the owners' meetings was the potential change in playoff rules, which then got pulled back. The Lions had put in for different seeding selections that got pulled back. I believe it. The word was it was tabled, so they're going to revisit it probably in a future year. Last year was an interesting situation. Definitely revolved around my Vikings, who 14-win team, but they didn't get a top seed because they weren't top in their division. Uh, and I get that also.
Browns had to go on the road to Houston when they had a better record.
Yeah. Also do better, I guess, you can win more games. Like, that's kind of what it comes down to me. Like, I get the notion. It really sucks when you see these, NFC South teams, the Falcons and the Panthers and the Saints all duking it out with sub 500 records to, this was a couple of years ago, but I mean, like, you get these teams that are bad divisions, but one of those guys in the division is going to make it to the playoffs because someone has to. That sucks and feels cheap when your team might have had a good year, ended up in second place in your division, but now doesn't qualify for a wild card still. That sucks. And you don't see it super often, but it still seems to happen every couple of years where we have good teams not make the playoffs, bad teams do make the playoffs. It is kind of the beauty of the sport is that any given Sunday, this team might turn it on in the playoffs, and now they're making it all the way to the Super Bowl. I mean, look at the Giants. They ran the table back in the day with Eli, were able to make it to the Super Bowl. So I think it's an interesting thing. I would be intrigued to see how it plays out. I'm not completely against it, but we're not seeing any sort of a change this year. It's tabled for the future.
All right. I was just thinking of different ways that you can manipulate the playoff brackets to get the best teams. It's so hard with divisions, and in the NFL, you can't really have it any other way. Like I feel like in Major League Baseball, with how many games are played, and they're kind of going to this model a little bit more that they play everybody every year now. But if you played everybody the same amount of times, you could be a completely divisionless league, and then you just take your top 8, top 10 records, and then you seed them, and now all your best teams are in the playoffs. You don't have to worry about one of these big teams, one of these, missing the playoffs. It just, you can't really do that with the NFL because the frequency is so limited. You only have 16 games. 17 games now. But you have 32 teams. I think the only thing that you could do would be play every team inside of the AFC and NFC every year. That you have to do it. That's your schedule. But I don't know if you wanted to really change the seating, you'd have to get rid of the divisions entirely. Because what's the point of having the divisions if they mean fucking nothing?
Yeah, it would be a false way of trying to maintain rivalries. Obviously, there's huge rivalries in your AFC North, NFC North. In every division football, there's rivalries because those are the guys who you are directly competing with. You are directly competing with 3 other teams for a guaranteed playoff spot every year. And so that creates that rivalry. Without that, the divisions would be pointless. There's also, of course, limited travel because those teams typically are somewhat closer proximity to one another in order to reduce some of the travel times and things like that, which are some of the benefits of keeping those divisions. So I don't think that there's any way that that goes away.
Yeah. Listen, Manfred, if you like my idea about the baseball thing, feel free to use that. I feel like that one actually might work. That would be kind of a good way to maybe get people more intrigued about what baseball is doing. No divisions, completely open fucking schedule in baseball, and the best teams will make the playoffs regardless. don't know. You're welcome, MLB.
Here's another argument, though, is that let's say right now, am I out of my scope to say the NFC North is probably the best division in football right now?
No, I think that for sure they are right now, at least
So
based
you're
off of last
talking
year.
you're talking about my Vikings have to go and play 6 times, basically a third of their season versus the toughest teams in the NFL potentially in their own division.
Potentially.
That's a bruising thing to have to go through.
Yeah.
Let's say each of these teams comes out 500. Every team in the NFC North is 500 against other NFC team or NFC North teams. Like that immediately starts to limit you compared to, another team who is playing in a shitty division. Like if I'm the Buccaneers, I'm super glad where I'm playing right now because
Yeah, oh
I
yeah,
go
for
up
sure.
against weak teams in my division, but it's all almost arbitrarily boosting your potential of having a good record. So a better record doesn't always necessarily equate to a better team, especially when you look at the difficulty of the division that you're playing in. That's why I think this NFC North is going to be really intense this year because every team in there should be competitive, should be really good. And it's going to affect every team's record. You could pencil in potentially 3 losses for each of those teams if they all go 500 against each other.
Yeah.
Vikings were 14-3 last year. That's their 3 losses. Now they have to run the table against everyone else that they play. Like that's tough. So you start to look at it that way, which is kind of how, as we are looking ahead, future shows, building out our record predictions for every team, I could see that sort of potentiality happening. And now you've already got 3 baked in losses in your division at a minimum. And then you're obviously going to sustain some more losses as the season goes along. It makes it very interesting to see what the total win numbers are going to be for some of these teams in really good divisions.
Whew, man. Yeah, your division is going to be very tough. Maybe if the Bears, will see that they're going to be much better. I think Ben Johnson's going to get them figured out.
It
I hope my
all
division
depends on that
is.
quarterback.
I hope my division's shitty. And the Bears are not the Browns are really good. And Shadur wins the starting quarterback job. We'll see.
We'll see.
And we'll wrap up today's show with some sad news. But Colts owner Jim Irsay has passed away at the age of 65. The man lived a crazy, crazy life. Was a powerlifter, like crazy stories, has all sorts of like musical things, donates to all sorts of charities. Was trying to save a fucking whale. The dude was a very like giving man. Some demons though, very well documented demons that everybody liked to bring up, but I think everybody that knows him that talked about Jim Irsay says that he was a fucking great dude, a guy's guy. Loved to be around him, and thoughts, prayers to his family, his loved ones at this time.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any doubt that he probably lived life to the fullest given his capabilities financially. For both good and bad. Obviously, like you said, talked about some of those demons, which are definitely more accessible when you have that sort of financial stability.
Yeah.
But he also did a lot of philanthropic work that can't be overlooked. You know, 65 is young by today's day and age standards, and some of those demons very possibly caught up with him. But I think that he probably, if he was able to look back at his life right now, he probably would be like, I did it. Like,
Oh yeah.
I did it. And that's the way I want to go out for sure. I don't want to go out with any sort of insane regrets. So, it's a sad loss for the Colts and their family and the Irsays.
And he's been there. He was what 24 when he was the youngest GM in NFL history or something like that, and then became the owner of the Colts. Like God, he's been there fucking forever. So, very sad for the Colts. I sent my condolences to Torres on his loss.
He was probably like, who?
He's like, I read the news. Yeah. Dude, it hit a lot of people, man. He was a pretty impactful guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. But let's get out of here, guys. This is Raw Dog Sports. I'm Mike. That's Evo. We're gonna be back next week. I don't know what we're talking about yet, but that's the great thing about sports. The week just kind of it will feed us news as we go. Because this week was full of it. Western Conference Finals. We'll check back in on those. We'll see what the next conversation is about Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. We'll see if anybody else gets paid, and hopefully, everybody else makes it to the next NFL meetings. Evo, give the people one last word.
Hey, I got to stick with it. Wolves back, baby. Come on, bring that ass. Let's win game 2. Go Wolves.
Guys, this is Wild Dog Sports. Thank you very much. I'm Mike. That is Evo. See ya next week. See ya.